The letter is one page and it uses the word insufficient. It comes in a windowed envelope from a bank on a Thursday, and it is technically a courtesy. Federal law requires them to tell you why. There's a checkbox format. Someone has marked the line that says insufficient income. You are sitting in a parked car reading a letter that says you don't make enough money, and there is $1,187,000 in an account you could open on the phone in your other hand. You wanted $180,000 to buy a house that costs $290,000. You could have wired the whole thing that afternoon. You applied for a mortgage instead because a fixed-rate loan is cheaper than the return you'd give up pulling the cash. And that is the correct math, and the bank cannot see it. The underwriter system needs 2 years of pay stubs, a debt-to-income ratio, and a number in a box labeled employer. You have none of those things. A portfolio is not income until you sell something, and the fact that you could sell something tomorrow does not exist anywhere on the form. You fold the letter into the glove box. You will not mention it to anyone, because mentioning it would require explaining the first half of that sentence, and you have not explained the first half of that sentence to a living person in 4 years. You are 22. You take a job at a gas processing plant on a 14 and 14 rotation. 14 days on, 12 hours a day, then 14 days off. It pays $56,000 to start, and there is more overtime available than any sane person should take. And you take it. The rotation is the whole story, and it takes you a decade to notice. For half of every year, you live in a bunkhouse where the food is free, and the only thing to buy is a soda. You cannot spend money at a plant. There is nowhere to spend it. Then you go home for 14 days, and you're too flattened to do much beyond sleep, fix things, and drive somewhere quiet. Your expenses that first year are about $22,000. You did not budget. You did not track anything. Geography saved the money, and you simply failed to undo it, which is a different virtue than the one people think they need. The rest goes into 3 index funds you pick on a phone in a bunk bed at 11 at night. Total Market, International, a slice of bonds you'll resent for a decade and keep anyway. Boone is on your crew and has been since your second hitch. He makes what you make, sometimes more, because he'll take the swings nobody wants. Boone's 14 days off are magnificent. There's a bass boat. There's a side-by-side with a light bar on it. There's a truck traded every 3rd year on a payment that never quite ends, which is the design. He is not reckless. He works half his life somewhere that smells like sulfur, and he buys things that make the other half feel like a reward. Anyone would. Most do. You are 25. You make $73,000. The account says $77,031. And you do a piece of arithmetic in a bunkhouse that changes the rest of your life without feeling like anything at the time. You had always assumed the number was enormous. Everyone assumes the number is enormous. So you look up what a portfolio is thought to hand back safely each year over a long stretch, and it's somewhere in the low 3s, and you take what you actually spend and divide it by that. The answer is not a fortune. The answer is a house. It's roughly the house Boone is going to build in 4 years, except it has no roof and never needs one. Nobody teaches you that the number is set by your spending and not your income. It's the only fact in personal finance that changes a life. It's a division problem a 9th grader can do, and you do it on the back of a shift report and tell nobody. You are 29. You hold $301,039, and your savings rate that year is 68%. That sentence gets you called a liar in most rooms in America. It's only possible because your income more than doubled in 7 years, and your life did not move an inch. And a life that doesn't move is invisible to everyone, including the person living it. This is also the year you start lying by omission. Not out of shame, out of maintenance. When a man learns what you clear and then watches you drive a 14-year-old truck, He does the math in the only direction available to him. He decides you're in debt, or paying support, or cheap in the way that's a character flaw. It's easier to let people believe you make less, so you do. Your brother Wade asks you to co-sign something that spring. You say no and you don't explain. And the reason you don't explain is that every honest version contains a number. The strange part is that the money has stopped feeling like money. You transfer it the day it lands, before it can become a thing you're deciding about. And after 7 years of that, the account isn't wealth, it's a place things go. You can look at a 6-figure balance and feel nothing at all. Then you can stand in a hardware store and put back a $30 tool because you don't need it yet. Both of those are the same man on the same day, and neither of them is being careful on purpose anymore. You are 33. The account is $701,747, and this is the year the trap opens, and it opens looking like a gift. One more rotation year adds about $143,000 now, not from thrift, from size. The account moves more on its own in a decent year than you could shovel in by hand, which means every additional year makes the next one more expensive to skip, and there is no alarm, no email, no ceremony that arrives to tell you the arithmetic is finished. Men stay 11 extra years inside that logic and never feel they chose anything. Marisol finds out that fall because a statement is face up on the counter and she asks a direct question and you decide in about a second to answer it honestly. She's the only one who ever will know. She has work she likes and no intention of stopping, and no particular interest in a bunkhouse economy. She asks what happens if you're wrong. Not an attack, an actual question. You say you'd go back to work. It's the answer everybody gives and almost nobody has priced. You are 35. You don't quit. You just don't sign the next rotation. The sheet goes around in November like it does every November. You hold it for most of a shift. One more year is $143,000, and you can feel exactly how reasonable that is, and how reasonable it will be again next November, and the one after that, at which point you'll be 41 telling yourself the same true thing. There's no speech. You turn in 2 coveralls, a hard hat, and a badge to a woman in an office trailer who asks whether you're going to Permian or Cheyenne, because those are the 2 places people go. You say you're taking some time. She writes something in a box. Nobody in that building asks a follow-up. Not one person. The absence of the question is a small mercy, and also the first proof of something you'll spend 15 years confirming. People are not curious about your life. They're busy inside their own, and you are a detail in it. The account is $964,322. You never had $1 million, not for one day. Of that number, $767,460 is money you personally put in, out of $1,529,000 of gross pay across 13 years. The market added $196,862, less than a fifth of the total, because you never gave it long enough to do the impressive part. You did not buy this with returns. You bought it with a denominator. You spend $34,000 a year, $2,833 a month for all of it, against $964,322, that's a withdrawal rate of 3.5%, which is not a safe number so much as the point where the failures stop being common and start being rare. You tell no one, and the reasons are not the ones you'd guess. The first is that "I retired at 35" is not a sentence people receive. They hear a different one. They hear inheritance, or crypto, or a settlement, and then they wait for the pitch. Because in their experience, a man who announces this is 30 seconds from selling a course about it. The second is that the true version is worse. The true version is that you earned well and lived on roughly 40% of a normal household income for 12 years. And that answer lands like an accusation. It says, this was available. It says something about the listener that you never intended and cannot take back. The third takes years to admit. As long as nobody knows, you can still go back, and nobody will have watched. The first spring you file a return that owes almost nothing, and none of it is a trick. You sell shares to fund the year, and long-term gains inside the 0% bracket are taxed at exactly that. For 2026, a single filer stays there up to $49,450 of taxable income, with a $16,100 standard deduction coming off first. Room for roughly $65,550 of gross income at a federal capital gains bill of zero. You need $34,000. Your health plan is priced off the income you report, not the assets you hold. The marketplace asks what you make. It never asks what you have. You answer honestly, and the honest answer is a number that would qualify a man stocking shelves for help. Nothing about it is a loophole. All of it is written down on purpose. None of that stops it feeling like walking around in another man's coat. You are 39, and by now the days have come apart. 14 on, 14 off for 13 years is a shape. Take the shape away, and what's left isn't freedom. It's a Tuesday with no edges. You sleep until the light is wrong. You start narrating your own errands to make them feel like tasks. Somewhere in there, you understand that half your adult life was already unstructured, and it never bothered you once, because the other half had been load-bearing. You also become, without a single conversation about it, the one who's available. There's a funeral on a Wednesday 2 states over, and you're the only person who can go. There's a hospital discharge at 2 in the afternoon, and a woman who needs a ride. There's a move, a dog, an airport run at 5:40 in the morning. Each ask arrives already apologizing. You say yes before they finish. Everyone in that circle has quietly filed you as between things. It's been 4 years of between things. Somebody's wife tells somebody else you had a hard stretch after the plant, and it travels, and it settles, and you let it, because the true version takes 20 minutes and ends with a number. You are not being humble. Humility would require somebody knowing. This is closer to hiding, and you know the difference, and you keep doing it. That's the spring the bank sends the letter. You are 41 when the market falls 24%. The balance goes from $1,033,482 to about $785,446 in 11 weeks. Your $34,000 hasn't changed. Against the smaller number, it's 4.33%. And 4.33 is the wrong side of every table you've ever read. There's no employer to absorb it, no raise arriving. The thing that quietly protects a working person in a bad market is a paycheck with no relationship to the market, and you traded yours away in an office trailer 6 years ago. You cut to $29,000. It isn't hard. It's humiliating in a way only one person can see. Marisol has now worked for 6 years while you have not. And in a bad month, she says the thing she has never said, that she can't tell anymore whether she works because she wants to or because you don't. It's the only unfair sentence she's ever aimed at you, and it's at least partly true, and neither of you says another word about it for a long time. The market comes back. It has so far every time. You don't feel proven right. You feel like a man who was told the odds and got the good side of them, which is a different sensation, and it's the one nobody remembers by the time they tell the story. A Social Security statement lands a few years later. The benefit formula averages your highest 35 years of earnings. You worked 13. 22 of the years in that average are zeros, and will still be zeros at 67, and no amount of compounding touches it, because that particular machine only counts wages. You'd budgeted for it. It is still a strange thing to read on a weekday afternoon. You take a job driving a school bus, 3 hours in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, $19,000 a year, which changes nothing about your finances and fixes something you've been unable to name for a decade. 41 kids know whether you showed up. That turns out to have been the compensation you were underwaiting the entire time. Boone retires at 64 with a small pension, a paid-off house, a boat, and 38 years of men who knew whether he showed up. He is not a cautionary tale, and you've never once thought of him as one. He bought his half-lives in installments as he went. You bought yours in a lump, early, and you paid for it in a currency he'd have found absurd. You are 50. The balance is $1,234,402. You've pulled $34,000 a year out of it for 15 years, $510,000, and it is $270,080 larger than the day you walked out of the trailer. Wade still doesn't know. He thinks the bus is because things got tight. He said so once, kindly, and you let it stand, because correcting him would have cost him something, and you could never work out what. The letter is still in the glove box. It's been there 11 years, gone soft at the folds. Nothing on it was inaccurate. A bank is allowed to describe a man by the only thing it can measure, and the thing it can measure is whether money arrives on a schedule with somebody else's name on the deposit. By that definition, you had none. By that definition, you have been insufficient every single day since the November you didn't sign. And not one person has ever asked you to defend it, because nobody reads another man's mail. You bought the house in cash that spring. It took 4 minutes, and nobody asked a question about that either.